buy a small car with personality and it isn't generally a very practical choice, unless the car in question is a Kia Soul. In-your-face SUV-style looks aren't what we expect from this Korean brand, but sensible pricing and versatile cabin space are much more familiar. Combine the two and you've a car that's worth looking at twice. Kia have established themselves a reputation as makers of competent, affordable, but sometimes rather characterless cars. Drive them and you might wonder whether this Korean maker really is able to produce models that are more than merely a means of getting from A to B. Cars, if you like, with soul. Well, it has, and this is it. The Kia Soul is a small car, but not as we know it. It targets the fashion and style conscious, much as do other small car products like the Fiat 500 and the Mini. However, unlike them, it does so whilst retaining reasonable levels of practicality. This is the first really trendy small car that you could also realistically use for family transport. Yes, inevitably there's the level of Marmite love it or hate it feel about this car, but if the Koreans really do have this right, then this Soul from Seoul should prove to be a success story. There are 4x4 overtones in the Soul's upright stance, high driving position and higher than average ride height. Even so, Kia haven't bothered to build in any 4x4 mechanicals or off-road capability, despite suggestions to the contrary from the fake skid plates front and rear and the artificial Range Rover sports style side bonnet vents. Now, the outside of this car may be charismatic, but the internals, the engines, are very sensible. You get a choice of 1.6 litre engines, both with around 125 brake horsepower, and both capable of rest to 60 in about 10.5 seconds on the way to 110 miles an hour. So on paper, they perform comparably. In real-world motoring, however, it's the diesel that feels much the stronger, thanks to its far superior pulling power. Now that makes this car an easy partner in city centre motoring, where the lazy torque of the diesel engine means that you don't have to row this Kia along with the gear lever. A tight turning circle and light steering also help here, as does the generally good all-round visibility, although that thick rear C-pillar at the back there means that occasionally reversing might cause a few problems. Now, inevitably, given that high-set stance, this Kia isn't quite as impressive out of town, though Kia has clearly made great efforts to try and improve things in this regard, with a little help from Lotus engineering. So though you get more body roll than you would in a conventional supermini, it's not that noticeable unless you're really pushing on over secondary roads. In that instance, you might not appreciate the rather light electrically assisted steering, but the ride's okay unless you've made the mistake of specifying overly large alloy wheels. Overall then, not an especially agile car, but one that always feels planted and self-assured. Now, the thinking behind this car isn't too hard to fathom. Take the Hyundai i20 supermini platform that Kia uses for its small car products, and get the guy who designed the original Audi TT, Peter Schreier, to create a funky body for it to sit on. In this case, a tall, square-cut, almost military-style stance with a tall bonnet, these chunky wheel arches and an almost vertical rear hatch. Then simmer the whole thing in Kia's US design studio to give it some surf shack attitude. Understand this backstory and you won't wonder at a result that will get other school-run parents doing a double take. Now, just how far you want to pique their interest will probably depend just how far you've ventured up the range or into the options list. Entry-level versions look relatively conventional, but go for this top-spec burner version with its colour-coded cabin and exterior, and add a few jazzy graphics, and then you'll be really ready for a street cruise. Enough on the attitude, what about the practicality? Well, this car might be only 4 metres long, only a fraction longer than a Fiesta, but its boxy shape bodes well here. Now, Kia reckons that this car has more passenger space than a Nissan Qashqai, which is 200mm longer and competes with significantly larger cars. But don't get too carried away. 3 adults would struggle to spend long periods together in this back seat, though there is pretty reasonable room for 2 people for what is essentially a stylish supermini on stilts, with excellent head and decent leg and knee room. Older buyers will also like the high-set seats and these wide opening doors, though what they'll make of the bad boy styling is anybody's guess. At the wheel, the controls are pretty much all easy to find and straightforward to use, and problems are really minor ones. The plastic quality isn't brilliant, it's quite easy to scuff. You've got slightly fiddly arrangement for getting your seat back angle, and it's a pity that the wheel doesn't adjust in and out as well as up and down. Out back, there are decent levels of luggage space. You've got 340 litres in here with all these seats in place, although they do split fold rather half-heartedly, with the back of the seat going forward but the cushion staying put, and the resulting load platform is high and well above the level of the boot floor. However, once you've freed up all the space, you've got 671 litres here, and top spec Soul models like this one get a very useful removable boot floor with a compartment under here for added versatility. Now, unusually for such a small car, the engines are all quite large, nothing less than 1.6 litres in size. So bear that in mind when comparing this model to apparently cheaper direct rivals. Not that there are many. List prices suggest that you'll pay anything between £11,000 and £15,000 for your Kia Soul. So what are we talking about in real terms when it comes to rivals? Well, in list price terms, you could compare this model to 1.4 litre 5-door conventional superminis like Ford's Fiesta or Vauxhall's Corsa. You're looking at a saving there, if you buy the Kia, of around £1,500. If you go for this car's soulmate, that's Hyundai's i20 Supermini, you could save yourself £1,000 or so, but you'd still only get that smaller 1.4 litre engine. As far as other rivals are concerned, well, the only ones I could think of were Mini's Clubman, which is less powerful, offers less versatility, and still will cost you £3,000 more. Or, if you really like the 4x4 look and feel, Daihatsu's Terios, but it's smaller, noisier, thirstier, and it's still more expensive. Engine choice is between a 124 brake horsepower 1.6 litre 16 valve petrol unit or this 128 brake horsepower CRDI 16 valve diesel. There's an almost bewildering number of trim and option variations too, and there's the alternative of a 4-speed automatic gearbox, but it's a pretty old unit and I wouldn't bother with it unless you absolutely have to. Standard equipment includes the basics. You get air conditioning and an MP3 compatible stereo, but customers have to dip into their pockets or move up the range for the real niceties. Now here I've gone for the top spec burner model, which features red trim for the door panels, the fascia top and the top of the seats to match the red on the door mirrors and the front grille. It'll certainly get your passengers talking. All Soul models are reasonably equipped safety-wise. They all come with 6 airbags, anti-whiplash head restraints, Isofix child seat mountings, ABS brakes, and an ESP stability system to keep the car in control when you're not. Now this Kia promises to keep running costs manageable, and the diesel engine in particular looks quite good here. While the 1,329 kilogram weight means that the petrol returns 43.5 miles to the gallon on the combined cycle and 153 grams per kilometre of CO2, the diesel's 54.3 miles to the gallon on the combined cycle and 137 grams per kilometre of CO2 go some way, though perhaps not enough, towards justifying the price premium for the diesel unit in the first place. Now, this Kia's residuals are helped by a 5-year unlimited mileage warranty and suggest that after 3 years and 36,000 miles, you'll get about 35% of your initial purchase price back. Specify your car carefully and you might do a bit better than that. Go too far with the lifestyle bling and buyers will stay away. Insurance is Group 5. Rather optimistically, Kia reckons this is the first model they've produced for which buyers will check the colours, trims and accessories before they check the price. Now, that may or may not be true, but it'll certainly be a car that potential buyers will view differently. Some will see its quasi-military SUV style looks as being cutting edge and right up their street. Others simply won't get it. Most importantly though, the Soul has established Kia as a far cooler brand, and it's hard to put a price on that. If you're looking for a small car with a big personality, then try one. Who knows, you could well agree that you've got to have soul.